The doctor's voice cut through the silence, cold and final. "She has 1 hour left." The billionaire froze, staring at his mother's fragile body like time itself had just betrayed him. He had built empires, crushed competitors, controlled markets. But in that moment, standing in the hospital, he realized he couldn't buy even a single second more for her life. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments what time is it and where are you watching from. Let's start. The machines beeped slowly, each sound echoing like a countdown to something irreversible, while the maid stood quietly in the corner, her eyes fixed on the old woman's face. No one noticed her trembling hands, no one cared about her silent tears, because to them she was just a poor worker, invisible in a room filled with wealth and fear. Suddenly, the billionaire's phone rang. His board demanded an urgent decision worth millions, but for the first time he rejected it, throwing the phone aside in anger. "I gave everything to the world and got nothing in return," he whispered, gripping his mother's hand, regret flooding in like a storm he could no longer control. The maid stepped forward slowly, her voice shaking. "Sir, may I try something?" The room fell silent, and the doctor looked at her with disbelief and quiet irritation. "Try what?" the billionaire snapped, his patience gone, his heart breaking, his mind refusing to believe that someone like her could change anything now. But the maid's eyes held something strange, not fear, not hope, something deeper, something that made the billionaire pause, like she knew something no one else did. The doctor scoffed quietly, shaking his head. "This is not the time for experiments." But the maid didn't step back, her eyes still locked on the dying woman as if she was waiting for something unseen. The billionaire hesitated for a moment, then spoke sharply. "You have 5 minutes. If this is nonsense, you're out of here forever." His voice was cold, but inside he was desperate for any miracle. The maid moved closer to the bed, gently holding the old woman's hand, her touch soft yet firm, like she wasn't afraid of death standing right in front of her. She leaned in and whispered something into the old woman's ear, words so low that no one else in the room could hear them, but the effect was immediate and shocking. The heart monitor suddenly spiked for a second, then steadied. The doctor rushed forward, confused, adjusting machines, thinking it was just a technical glitch or false signal. "What did you say?" the billionaire demanded, stepping closer, his eyes filled with suspicion, fear, and a strange flicker of hope he didn't want to believe. The maid didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at him, her eyes filled with pain. "Sir, there are truths your mother has been waiting to hear for years." Before he could respond, the maid asked something unexpected. "Do you remember the night she was left alone on the road, years ago?" The billionaire's face went pale instantly. His mind raced back to that night he had buried deep inside, a decision he never spoke about, a mistake he convinced himself was necessary for his rise to power. And just like that, the room didn't feel like a hospital anymore. It felt like a courtroom where the past had returned to deliver its final judgment. The billionaire staggered back, his breath uneven, as memories he had buried for years clawed their way back, refusing to stay hidden any longer in the darkness of his past. "That night," he whispered, his voice breaking, "I had no choice." But even as he said it, the lie felt weak, like it could collapse under the weight of truth at any second. The maid stepped closer, her eyes sharp now. "No, sir. You had a choice. You just chose power over the woman who gave you everything." Her words hit harder than any accusation ever could. The machines beeped louder for a moment, as if the old woman's fading life was reacting to the truth finally being spoken out loud after years of silence and suppressed guilt. The doctor tried to interrupt, insisting they step outside, but the billionaire raised his hand, stopping him. For once, money and authority meant nothing in this moment of truth. "What do you know about that night?" he asked, his voice trembling, his eyes locked onto the maid as if she held the key to something far bigger than he expected. The maid took a deep breath, her hand still holding the old woman's fragile fingers. "I know because I was there." The room froze, the air turning heavy with shock. The billionaire's eyes widened, confusion and fear crashing together. "That's impossible! There was no one else there!" His heart pounded as reality began to shift beneath him. Tears rolled down the maid's face as she nodded slowly. "You didn't see me because you never looked back." Her voice carried a pain that had lived silently for years. And in that moment, the past was no longer a memory. It was alive, standing in front of him, ready to expose every truth he had tried to erase forever. The billionaire's legs felt weak as he grabbed the edge of the hospital bed, his mind spinning, trying to deny what he just heard, but deep down he knew something was terribly wrong. "I left her, but she was alive," he muttered, his voice shaking as flashes of that dark roadside returned, rain, silence, and his mother's weak voice calling his name. The maid nodded slowly, tears falling without control. "Yes, she was alive, and she kept calling for you, again and again, until her voice broke into silence." The room turned unbearably heavy, the sound of machines mixing with his racing heartbeat as guilt wrapped around him like chains he could no longer escape from. "I went back the next morning," he said quickly, almost defensively. "She wasn't there. I thought someone helped her." His words sounded hollow even to himself. The maid closed her eyes for a second, then whispered, "Someone did, but not the way you think." Her grip tightened around the old woman's hand as if protecting her even now. "I found her on the side of the road, barely breathing, soaked in rain, abandoned like she meant nothing," the maid continued, her voice filled with pain and quiet anger. The billionaire's face turned pale, his body frozen, unable to process the truth unfolding in front of him, each word cutting deeper than the last. "I stayed with her all night," the maid said softly, "while you were building deals, signing contracts, and forgetting the woman who gave you life." And just then, the heart monitor let out a strange, uneven sound, not fading, not stopping, but changing, as if something impossible was about to begin. The doctor rushed to the monitor, confusion written all over his face. "This doesn't make sense. Her vitals were collapsing, but now they're stabilizing," he said, checking the readings again. The billionaire stepped closer, his heart pounding. Is she getting better?" His voice carried a fragile hope, the kind he had never allowed himself to feel before. The maid didn't look at the machines. Her eyes stayed on the old woman. "She's not responding to medicine. She's responding to something else," she whispered, her tone calm but powerful. "What are you talking about?" the doctor snapped, clearly irritated, unable to accept anything beyond science and logic inside his controlled environment. The maid slowly wiped her tears and said, "She has been waiting, not for treatment, but for truth, for closure that was stolen from her that night." The billionaire felt his chest tighten, every word hitting him like a hammer. "What do I need to do?" he asked, his voice no longer arrogant, but broken and desperate. For the first time, the maid looked directly into his eyes without fear. "Say what you
don't
never
have to turn
said.
around.
Admit what you never accepted before
You don't have
it's
to
too
see me.
late." His lips trembled as he
Just keep
turned
going.
toward his mother, the woman he had once left
I'll be right
behind,
behind you.
now lying helpless in front of him, her life hanging by a thread. I was ashamed," he finally whispered, tears forming. "You were sick,
You
weak,
keep walking through
and
the
I thought you would
shadows
destroy everything I built."
like you're carrying it all,
The truth came out, raw
never showing
and
any
painful,
weakness.
and suddenly the
Never
monitor
letting
beeped faster again,
teardrops
not
fall.
in panic,
I can
but
see
in
the way you're
response,
breaking
as if the old woman's soul was still
underneath that
listening,
quiet
waiting for
smile.
something more.
But you
The room
don't
fell
have to
silent as
face
his
it
confession hung
all
in the air,
alone this
heavy
whole
and
damn
unforgiving,
time.
while the
You
machines
don't
echoed
have
every
to look
second like they were measuring
behind.
not time,
I'll be
but
there
truth
just
itself.
outside.
Tears streamed down
When the
his face
world
as he
gets
dropped
way
his
too
knees
heavy,
beside the bed.
I'll be
I chose
holding
money
up
over
your
you.
sky.
I chose my
You
image
don't
over your
have
life,
to say
he
my
cried,
name.
his voice
I'll
breaking
still
completely.
hear you
The
in the
doctor
dark.
stepped back, stunned,
Even if
watching
you
something he
never
couldn't explain,
notice,
as the
I've
old
been
woman's
with
fingers
you
twitched slightly
from
inside the
the
maid's gentle
start.
grip. "She can hear you," the maid whispered softly, her voice filled with
If you
certainty.
stumble, if you fall,
"Don't stop now." She waited
if your
years
light
for this moment.
begins to
Don't let
fade,
fear silence you
I'll be
again.
right there
The
in the
billionaire pressed his
silence,
forehead
making
against
sure
his
you're
mother's hand.
not
His entire
afraid. You don't have
I
to
was
look
wrong. I
behind.
was cruel.
I'll be
And I
there
don't
just
deserve your
outside. When the
heart
world
monitor
gets
responded
way
again.
too
Its
heavy,
rhythm shifted,
I'll be
stronger
holding
now,
up your
as if each word
sky.
was
You
pulling her
don't
back
have
from
to
the
say
chasm
my
that had
name.
been slipping into
I'll
moments
still
ago.
hear you
I
in
left
the
you in the
dark.
rain,
Even
alone,
if you
calling my
never
name, he
notice,
continued,
I've been
shaking.
with you
And I lived every day pretending it never
from the
happened.
start.
The maid closed her eyes,
I
tears
don't
falling.
need to stand beside you. I don't need to be the light.
As if a burden
If it means that you keep
was finally being
moving,
released.
I'll just stay
Tell
here
her
out
the
of
one thing
sight.
you never did, she urged quietly,
You
her
don't
voice
have
guiding him
to
toward the
look
final
behind.
truth he had
I'll be
avoided
there
his entire
just
life.
out of sight.
And with trembling
When the
lips,
world
broken
gets way
pride,
too heavy,
and nothing left
I'll be
behind,
holding
he
up
finally
your
whispered the
sky.
words
You
that
don't
could
have
change
to say
everything
my
or
name.
end it
I'll still
forever.
hear
"I'm
you
sorry,
in the dark.
Mom.
Even
I'm so
if you
sorry," he
never
finally
notice,
said, his voice
I've been with
collapsing
you
under the weight of years of guilt
from
as
the
tears
start.
fell uncontrollably onto her fragile, motionless hand. For a second, nothing happened. The room stayed still, the machine steady, the doctor silent, as
don't
if
have
the
to turn
world
around.
itself was holding its breath, waiting for a response. Then, suddenly, the old woman's fingers moved, slightly, but clearly. The billionaire froze, his eyes wide, unable to believe what he just felt in his trembling hands. "Doctor, did you see that?" he shouted, hope and fear crashing together, while the monitor's rhythm grew stronger, louder, almost fighting against death itself. The doctor rushed forward, checking her pulse again, his face filled with disbelief. This is not possible," he murmured, unable to explain what was happening. The maid stepped back quietly, watching everything unfold, but her face wasn't surprised. It was calm, as if she had been waiting for this exact moment all along, slowly, painfully, the old woman's eyes began to open, weak, tired, but alive. Her lips trembled as she tried to form words that had been trapped for years. "My son," she whispered, her voice barely audible, but strong enough to shatter every wall he had built around his heart over the years. He broke down completely, holding her hand tightly. I'm here. I'm not leaving you again," he cried, his entire identity crumbling into something human
but
at
my
last.
lips stay locked and
Just
dry.
as the moment turned
Every
hopeful,
word
the
I
maid
wanna
quietly
tell
turned
you
toward the
drowns
door,
before
her eyes filled
even
with
try.
something deeper.
You're right
Like
there,
her
but
role in
feel
this
so
story was
distant,
almost over.
like a dream I
Wait,
can't hold
"Don't
on.
go," the billionaire
And I
called
fake a
out,
calm
his voice
expression
urgent,
while
as he
my
noticed the
heart is
maid
coming
quietly reaching
undone.
for the door.
It's
like she
raining
was about
deep
to
inside
disappear
my
from their
heart,
lives forever.
but I don't
She
let it
paused for a
show.
moment, her back
I just
still
stand
turned.
here in the
"My work
silence
here
while
is
I
done,"
watch you let
she
me
said
go.
softly, her voice
You're walking
carrying
with
a strange
somebody
peace that
else,
didn't match the storm
like I
she
never
had just
crossed your
caused. The
mind.
billionaire stood up
And I'm
quickly,
drowning in
confusion
this
written all over
feeling
his face.
that I'll never leave
"You don't
behind.
understand. You saved her. You saved my
I could
mother.
scream, but what's
I
the
owe
reason?
you everything."
You
The
were
maid
never
slowly
really
turned
mine,
around, her eyes filled with
so I
emotion.
bury all the
"No, sir.
pieces
I didn't save her.
and pretend
You
that
did.
I'm alright.
The moment you chose
It's
truth
raining
over
deep
pride."
inside my
The
heart,
old woman, still weak
but I
but
don't
conscious,
let it show.
slightly raised her hand toward
I
the
just
maid,
stand here
her
in the
eyes filled with
silence
recognition,
while I
as if
watch
she
you
knew her
let
far
me
beyond
go.
this moment.
You're walking with somebody else, like I
She
never
whispered
crossed
faintly,
your
her voice
mind.
fragile,
And
but
I'm
clear enough to
drowning
carry
in this
meaning that
feeling
shocked the
that I'll
billionaire to his
never
core.
leave
The
behind.
maid stepped closer, gently holding her hand one last time. "I promised you that night I wouldn't leave you alone the way he did," she said, tears falling silently. The billionaire's heart dropped, realization hitting him like lightning.
I won't ask you to
You were
stay
the
now.
one all these years.
If you're happy where
His
you
voice
are,
trembled as truth
I'll
fully
just
revealed
fade
itself.
into the
She nodded slowly.
crowd.
"I had nothing.
It's raining
But I
deep
stayed.
inside my heart,
Not for money, not
but
for
I
reward,
don't let it show.
but because no mother
I just
deserves to
stand
be
here in
abandoned
the
like that."
silence while I
And
watch
as silence
you
filled
let
the
me
room
go.
once again, the
You're
billionaire
walking with
realized the
somebody
impossible wasn't
else,
just
like
saving
I
a life.
never crossed
It
your
was being given a
mind.
second chance
And
to
I'm
become
drowning
human
in
again.
this feeling
The story ends here, but the mystery lives on.
that I'll
Like,
never
subscribe,
leave
and
behind.
return for the next unforgettable journey.